Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Market Down Podcast. My name is Nick Cummings, joined this week by James Asante, fresh out of rehab after last week's shenanigans. It appears he's going through something else this week, so we'll see what we got out of him. I'm not entirely sure week to week anymore with him. Obviously, we are here to recap the latest episode of AEW Dynamite. We are now 2 weeks, or at least 2 episodes removed from All Out and everything that happened thereafter. So we're getting closer and closer to Grand Slam and kind of sorting everything out. But obviously, we are in a post CM Punk, post Elite world, and we're continuing to see how I agree how Tony Khan books that. And he started by, and I called this, booking Jon Moxley versus Sammy Guevara in the first semifinal match of the Tournament of Champions. Winner obviously going on to the finals next week at Grand Slam. Mox obviously comes out first. Sammy comes out second. And commentary noted that he wasn't with Ty. Obviously, obvious Ty is obvious when he obviously is there, but you know what I mean. She came in later, but it was interesting to note that he did initially come out without her. Anyway, I really enjoyed this match. There was a lot of back and forth in the beginning. There was a lot of back and forth throughout the entire match to the point where it didn't really seem like either man maintained an advantage for more than a few minutes. Sammy got his shit in, then Mox got his shit in, and then back again. So I really enjoy it. At a certain point, Sammy countered a King Kong Lariat with a Spanish Fly. Both men went down, which led Ty and Anna to come out after Moxley kicked out. Anna got up on the ring apron and distracted the ref, who did his best to not get distracted. I got to give him credit. But once Anna threw her jacket into the ring, he had to go after her. So Ty sneaks in behind him, kicks Mox in the huevos. Sammy goes for the roll-up pin, but Mox kicks out. To which Regal says there's an old trick to pull them inside of yourself to prevent some of the damage, which is what Moxley apparently did there in kayfabe, which might be the most regaling I've ever heard. Eventually, Sammy gets Mox up for the GTH. Mox counters, hits a Death Rider 1, 2, 3, and Jon Moxley is moving on to the finals at Grand Slam for the AEW Championship. So, James, like I said, I very much enjoyed this match. I enjoyed the back and forth. I think it made Sammy look really, really good, being able to hang with probably the top guy in the company right now. And I think obviously the right person wins here with Moxley moving on to the finals.
You said a lot, and I appreciate all of that. I respect all of that. All I could focus on was how long Sammy's ass cheek was hanging out of his trunks. It was like super distracting how pale this guy is.
I'm sure there are plenty of people who did not mind.
I'm not complaining. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying nobody in camera, nobody in production, the ref couldn't say to him, hey, man, just, pull it down just a little bit. But in all seriousness, it was a great match. The right guy won. Moxley needed the win. Sammy looks good even with the loss. And truth be told, I think this was probably Sammy's most important match, I feel, in a very long time. I can't remember the last time he was in something high profile that was also important. So this was a nice return to form for Sammy. He's playing
at least in a singles match, because he was in the Blood and Guts. So, I would agree with this in terms of singles matches.
Definitely. This is nice for Sammy. This isn't nice for a society. This isn't nice for a circle. This is nice for Sammy, and I'm happy for him in that regard. He is so good. He is just so damn good, and it's so easy to lose that with all the backstage shenanigans that he gets himself in. More people talk about his relationship status. More people talk about the fights he gets in. More people talk about his vlog. It's true, but given the world of AEW right now, that's one more than anybody can afford at this point.
Yeah, and I will also say, just for posterity's sake, he did straighten that out very quickly.
He did. He also made it worse though, by doing that interview too. Afterwards, everything was fine.
Yeah,
but he made it worse before he made it better. But good match. I love his Cody KO, his Cody cutter.
Yeah.
that he took from Cody. Like, I love that he hits it so beautifully. And he sells incredibly. He sells Mox's moves so great. The original Dirty Deeds that he used to hit WWE, Mox hits that move on Sammy, and Sammy makes it look like death every time he does. So great match between these guys. Again, it's like you said, right guy won.
Just isn't Dirty Deeds now just a paradigm shift, and then the high one is the Death Rider?
So the original Dirty Deeds was not the double arm DDT. The original Dirty Deeds was like that armpit, like spiking the head into the floor.
I forgot about that. That's real old school.
That is like thank you. Deep cut.
I do remember him using something else as Dirty Deeds now, and I forgot it was that. So good call. He did sell that like that. He sells everything great. And honestly, I'm really happy Sammy did well in this match, because I actually did watch Rampage for once. We had access to a DVR, so I recorded it and I watched it after it was done. And I was actually quite disappointed in the Darby Sammy match. It was kind of short considering their past matches.
Yeah, no, it was.
Considering their past matches, it just didn't live up to the hype I thought it was going to have. The crowd never really got too into it. I thought the end was lame with Anna and Ty, and just, it was predictable. And just, I wish one of them would have won clean. But I was very disappointed in it. So I'm glad he was able to come back and have honestly a pretty solid, but better than solid, a really good match with Mox here.
I agree.
Honestly, I think it's a little hard to have a bad match with Mox at this point. But
at this stage, Moxley is the Iron Man of AEW.
Yeah,
he is the ace of AEW.
Yeah, exactly. After his promo the other week, and now this, he's their guy. He's the guy, and we'll see if they put the title on him next week. I do think it's plausible, depending on whether or not he actually wants to take that vacation.
True.
But we'll see.
Very true.
All right. After that, we actually went into commercial with Excalibur saying MJF was causing a commotion backstage and demanded a microphone. And we come back from commercial to a very pissed off MJF, who immediately has his music cut and goes to the ring. He says that he hasn't slept in 7 days, because he's pissed at Moxley, because when he looked into Mox's eyes last week, Mox wasn't afraid of him. And he's upset because he thinks everyone should be afraid of him, especially this new, Diablo-esque MJF, who is finally back from his hiatus. He says, MJF says that he's not the same person that Moxley fought in 2020. And he isn't playing a character anymore. He isn't playing the MJF for 2020 campaign character. Moxley's the guy playing the character, because MJF read Mox's book. If you haven't, you should. It was very good.
It was very good.
But MJF says that Mox is still the poor, scared little boy who got bullied, that he always was, and that the only way he could cope was becoming a drunk, which was a fucking shot and a half, in my opinion. He does give him credit for beating his addiction, though, which I guess he should. But he suggests that Mox should take the vacation he was talking about, because bad things happen to people who get in his way. And he says the same goes for both Bryan and Jericho, and that he shouldn't want to win MJF's title. And then he ends it by bringing up the demon that Moxley mentioned upon his return from going to rehab and stuff, and says that, and MJF says that he's that demon and he's unkillable. After that, he then introduces the first stable on retainer, the Firm, who are Stokely Hathaway and his boys. I think I'm going to be one of the few people who is intrigued by this, which is
I'm intrigued, but we'll talk about the execution in a minute.
Okay, so Stokely broke down how everything came together with MJF. I honestly didn't hear all of this because my oven was going off and I had to get my food out before it burned. And then he ran down the members of the Firm, started with Morrissey, and he basically just said what they all want and laid out everything they're going to be challenging for. Morrissey apparently just wants to do whatever he wants. And Stokely hugged him and said he loved him and made Morrissey say, "I love you" back.
In a very, very awkward way.
It was kind of weird, yeah. Moriarty wants to go for the Ring of Honor Pure title, which I'm actually here for. I think considering he was the last guy Brian brought up originally, and him fighting Garcia after he fought Wheeler is just kind of a cool little continuity there.
I agree.
And that's what they seem to be using the Pure title for, is to, help these young guys build up. So that was that. The Guns want the tag titles, obviously, and Ethan Page wants to go for the All Atlantic Championship. So a lot here, obviously, in this promo. We basically spans two major, not want to say major, but two big subjects. So let's start with MJF. Obviously, another great promo out of him. When does he not have one? It appears to me, James, we're setting up for some sort of MJF Moxley confrontation, whether it be Mox win the title in a cash-in, or Mox doesn't win the title and they end up having a feud or something. So it appears to me that we're heading that way.
It's no secret I am a Bryan Danielson guy, and I want Bryan Danielson to go all the way in this tournament. I want him to be champion so badly, but they're setting up Moxley MJF too much. Like, a part of me wants to believe it's just a red herring. A part of me wants to believe that they're doing this to set up Mox MJF no matter what, like you said, title, no title, but it feels like MJF is destined for the title at this point. So I don't know how you make both happen. I don't know how you give us Mox MJF and not have MJF go for the title as well. So I don't know. But there is a genuine question coming out of next week. Who will be the new AEW World Champion? Bryan or Mox? And then or Jericho. And it could be Jericho. Bro. But MJF could cash in too next week, or he could do whatever. We don't know. So what we do know is there is a lot. The world title scene is on fire right now, and that's great. MJF, that was low-hanging fruit, and we're going to move forward. MJF is on fire right now. And the stuff with the firm, I love it as a concept. I love this, like, we're a group of guys for hire. I love the APA growing up. I love the Alcohol Protection Agency, or the Acolyte Protection Agency. I love that group as a kid. And I love that concept of wrestlers who it's like, we'll fight guys for you if you pay us. That's brilliant to me. That really is brilliant. But they don't really stand for anything. It seems like each guy wants their own thing, which is cool. Like the BCC doesn't need to be a unified front. They're a group of people who just like to wrestle. And then from there, they decide when they team up. But in this instance, there's no connective tissue for these guys. And it's not even that money is the connective tissue. That's just like that's Stokely's motivation, it seems. But these guys all have different desires that, I don't know. I'm all for this group in concept. I like all the members individually. I love W. Morrissey. Ethan Page is just waiting to blow up.
He got a big pop.
He did. He really did. The Ass Boys are slowly developing. And Lee Moriarty is definitely the rising up and comer of the group if they do it right by him. So I don't know if it's too early for me to say that this group is kind of messy. I don't know if it's too late for me to say that they can still fix it. You could just see you're just focusing on the beard, aren't you?
I'm focusing on Dragoon saying you look like a Nick Jr. live action character.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Dragoon. But yeah, this is a strong. This group has a strong possible future, but it's just as possible they fall apart.
You know what this really feels like to me? It kind of feels like Stokely is Scott Boris, and he's the agent for everybody, where their interests are similarly aligned because, they're all affiliated with one person. And if one of them gets paid, then the next guy's probably going to get paid more because that's all Scott Boris does. But they're not necessarily on the same team. And I feel like that's what it's going to be here. For Stokely's motivation, it didn't just feel like money. It felt like power. He talked a lot about blackmail and like having leverage over people, and that's what he gets off on. So I feel like that's his motivation for all of this. Helping these guys get what they want allows him to gain power and leverage over other people and then use that, which is what he enjoys. So I think I do kind of like the loose affiliation thing. You know, it's just, it's another one of Stokely's guys. Just wait, like Manny Machado and Scott Boris are, Manny Machado and Juan Soto are Scott Boris guys. And they ended up on the same team, but they're not always necessarily playing for the same team. So, and they could, I think for the most part, their interests will align, or at minimum, they'll stay out of each other's way. Like if, I don't think Moriarty could go for the All-Atlantic Championship, but like, let's say Ethan Page wouldn't go for the pure title should Moriarty win it, like stuff like that. They're all going to stick to themselves. I guess occasionally they'll help each other out if Stokely thinks it's better for all of them as a whole. But for the most part, I think I'm going to enjoy this loose affiliation because it's something we don't always see. And I'm okay with that. It's something new. So we'll give it a try here. I'm intrigued by a lot of the people in it, especially Paige. I want to see if they can actually capitalize on him for once. And we'll go from there. All right. Next up, we had Jungle Boy versus Jay Lethal. We had a quick video package where Jungle Boy laid out an open challenge earlier in the day, and Lethal accepted within minutes, apparently. It's also of note, Jungle Boy, just back to being Jungle Boy, didn't use Jungle Boy Jack Perry the way he did at the pay-per-view. I guess that was kind of like a one-time deal, but I think we all think he's going to eventually move to that at some point, but I guess they just wanted to go back for now, branding-wise. Anyway, Jungle Boy looked really good early, had a bunch of counters against everything Lethal was doing, and then eventually Singh and Dutt got involved, and Lethal was able to turn the tables. Obviously, a lot of this focused on Jungle Boy's injured lower back after he took all those tough choke slams from Luchasaurus at All Out. The burns are healed. I was right. He did get burned. But obviously him being choke slammed into the steel grate and stuff, that was an obvious target for Lethal. At some point towards the end of the match, Jungle Boy actually went for a kill switch a la Christian, but Lethal was able to get out of it. He then hit an elbow drop, which Jungle Boy kicked out of. Jungle Boy then gets in the snare trap. Lethal was able to pull himself towards the ropes. Jungle Boy goes to pull Lethal back to the middle of the ring, but then Dutt gets on the apron. He eats a hard right hand for his troubles, and Lethal goes for the roll-up. The way he beat Dax, he didn't grab the tights, though, which is surprising, and Jungle Boy kicks out. Lethal actually, as he kicks out, grabs Jungle Boy's leg and goes for a figure four, but Jungle Boy is able to reverse that back into the snare trap and gets the tap-out victory. So, James, good, just solid match, nothing crazy here, but Jungle Boy gets a win after his very quick and sudden loss at All Out following the betrayal of Luchasaurus, and he's seemingly back on track here. James, you're muted.
Thank you.
If you stop taking selfies, you wouldn't be muted.
First of all, it's called social media, people. It's the only way to get people to get clicks on this thing. Second of all,
see, Dragoon's got my back.
Poor company to have. Jungle Boy losing served the story. It was necessary for him to lose to keep that story alive and to keep Luchasaurus's heat going, to keep Christian's heat going, even though unfortunately it looks like Christian will be out for several months. It was the necessary decision to make. But you can't send him spiraling yet either. Like, he can't keep taking losses because as popular as he is, he's not established enough. He can't survive too many losses. So this is a good return to form, a nice way. Stop looking at the goddamn comments.
I can't, dude. Dragoon is just roasting you.
I don't know why he's so mad. He's just... this is going to cost him a Ninja Turtle. Only he'll understand that. I'm not going to tell him. I'm not going to say it. But this is going to cost him a Ninja Turtle.
Also, Dragoon, it's pink. It's not red.
He's just stupid.
At least it's supposed to be. He just did it, so it's still a little dark. It'll lighten up.
Anyway, he beating a guy. Beating a guy like Jay Lethal, who, although he hasn't been booked the best in AEW, it's still a nice feather in your cap. You still get to say, I beat Jay Lethal. So that's good. And, it was a fine match, good back and forth between these two guys. Could have been a little bit better, but for a TV match, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Also, Lethal up and coming into the night has won 20 out of his last 27, so I guess 20 out of his last 28 now. He's still being booked very well.
Here we've talked about it before.
But yes, they inflate the numbers on Dark and
yes.
Elevation and occasionally Rampage. But, he's still billed as a credible threat, I think is my point.
Oh, definitely. They want him to feel important, even if they don't necessarily treat him as important.
Yeah. No, he's, very mid-card gatekeeper-esque. Or yes. I guess maybe even upper mid-card gatekeeper. And so they keep him strong while losing most of his bigger matches. But that's okay. After that, we get a video package of Hook and Action Bronson trading for their match next week. I am hyped for this. I cannot wait to see Bronsolino in the ring. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really pissed it's on Rampage. That is a Dynamite main event. I don't know what the fuck you're doing, Tony.
That's a pay-per-view main event.
Yeah, exactly. And then, holy shit, it's Luigi Primo. For those of you who didn't see this, I think it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, Luigi Primo went viral for being a wrestling pizza maker, and he literally wrestles while twirling dough in the ring. And it's ridiculous, and it's hilarious, and I cannot believe that Tony Khan got this guy. But I find it even better. He got him for a 2-second bit where Marvez is just like, it's Luigi Primo, and he immediately gets knocked out by Ethan Page. Like, it wasn't even like the guy got a line or he was like gonna pop or anything. Before anybody even recognized who he was on the ground. But I mean, good pull by Tony Khan.
Definitely. Look, there are certain guys who, at least their gimmick, would never make it in the main roster of any company, AEW, WWE, anywhere. So if they could get like a little 2-second popularity boost somewhere by showing up and being just recognized for how they got over in the way they did, that is quite the accomplishment. And that's something that I got to commend AEW for.
Yeah, I mean, they put this guy on national TV, and at the same time, you're also capitalizing on a viral meme, which is very, very smart.
Always.
Not 8 months down the road when the way some old white people used to do it in a different company. Anyway, after Ethan Page decks him, he says that Marvez is like, why? He's like, because we need to start taking this place seriously. After which Danhausen comes over. and in perfect timing, which Page said, he says he's going to fight, Page does, the Jester of AEW on Rampage, and Danhausen is like, good, we'll get this Jester Egon, and then kind of realizes it's probably him. So we have that set up for Rampage. I'm sad. These guys are friends. Go watch the vlog.
They're just never going to buy toys together ever again.
Poor Egon, turning his back on his friends. We come back from commercial. With video footage of Darby Allin at Nitro Circus. He backflipped the tricycle, finally nailed it this time. Good for him. First time, he fucked up completely, spun out and hit the airbag, which is bad. But he was okay. He nailed the second one clean. And then we get Matt Hardy coming up, congratulating him on hitting the backflip, talking a bunch about Team Extreme and stuff. And he says that he wants to work his way back into the top 5, and the best way to do that is to start by beating Darby Allin. So they also have a match on Rampage.
Give Matt Hardy the world title. Do it.
Cowards.
It can't be worse than Punk.
At this point, I imagine Danny would say something about Jeff Hardy, and we move on.
Yeah, we just move on. I cry and we move on.
Yeah. Next, we had Powerhouse Hobbs versus a jobber, and I'm sorry, sir, I did not catch your name. It was so fucking fast. Literally, the match was over before I finished typing the words Powerhouse Hobbs verse. So I didn't get that guy's name. I'm sorry.
How good is his spine buster?
It is really good. I mean,
he's so good.
He is really, really big too. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense as a finisher. Because outside of Arn, who obviously has the best, guys like Triple H and Bobby Roode using the spine buster as a signature always looked really good, but you never could buy it as a finisher. You can buy Hobbs as a finisher because he is lifting dudes up real fucking high, putting them down at 100 miles an hour. It's chef's kiss good. Anyway, after that, Hobbs grabs a mic, and before he could even start, we want Ricky chants from the crowd.
We do want Ricky.
Yep. Hobbs says the chapter with Ricky is over, and it's time for the new chapter in the book of Hobbs. But apparently, Ricky's not ready to turn the page because he comes down from the crowd, and after a quick scuffle, Hobbs is driven from the ring by Ricky. So, not much else here other than we're continuing to move the Hobbs and Ricky Stark storyline along. And I'm excited for it, especially because I think both of these guys are really, really over, but this could be a star-making vehicle for Ricky.
I think it could be for both of them. I just think after the first match in which Hobbs won so decisively, it's hard to imagine, even if Ricky does get the win, that he's going to look as good as he could have coming out of this feud. I don't know. I think they kind of botched it a little bit, but I like both of them enough that I'm willing to stick with it.
Yeah, I think we kind of mentioned this after All Out, where Hobbs getting the win was one of those things where you don't want to start the guy's heel turn off on a loss. But Ricky, I think, is the guy who's going to be elevated more by this feud by the end of it, just because he's so hot right now, especially after getting turned on. So we'll see. I think, like you said, I think they're both going to benefit from it. I just think Ricky is going to come out of this like a fucking rocket. And Hobbs is still going to look really good. And maybe he ends up taking like the TNT title from Wardlow or something. And I think Ricky probably maybe gets a shot at the actual AEW championship, but we'll see. There's a lot of moving parts there. After this, we have the Lucha Bros versus Swerve and Our Glory for the AEW Tag Team Championships, which was a bit of a surprise, but we had a quick backstage segment showing Death Triangle getting the news that they got the match for the tag titles. Honestly, beginning of this match felt kind of slow, and then they went into commercial, which was weird, but when it came back, it was good. There was a point where Keith Lee literally lawn darted Phoenix through the bottom rope in the apron to break up a pin, which I thought was amazing. And the match ended with one of the best sequences I ever saw. Phoenix hits the top rope Spanish Fly on Swerve, and as they land, Penta hits a Canadian Destroyer on Keith Lee. 1-2 kick out. That was just a crazy combination. Swerve takes out Phoenix on the outside. Lee hits a massive power slam, and they get the win and retain their titles. But I think we all kind of knew that was coming because they have to face the Acclaimed next week. And the Acclaimed come out. Max actually cuts his music, doesn't rap, so that's 2 weeks in a row.
That's how you know he's serious. Yeah, that's how you know he's pissed.
Yeah, he says if Swerve ever interrupts his rap again, he will kick his ass. Then tells Swerve to roll Keith Lee to Queens so that the uncrowned champs can become the AEW Tag Team Champions. And then Bowens says that they're going to beat Swerve and Lee's Drake and Josh looking ass because everybody loves the Acclaimed. Scissor me, daddy ass. So, James, I guess start with the match here, and then we'll go into next week, or a bit of a preview for next week. Like I said, this match started kind of slow, but then I think it picked up during the commercial break, and I wasn't super paying attention to the picture-in-picture. Perhaps I should have been, because when we got back, the action was really, really good, and it ended phenomenally.
This was a match that I don't think needed to happen. They did not
completely agree.
I think Swerve and Our Glory, if they wanted them to have a tag match going against, leading to their match against the Acclaimed next week, one, it did not need to be a title match. That just felt silly. It's like the Acclaimed had to earn it, but the Lucha Bros can just get the title match. And two, if they're going to have it be a title match going into next week, they did not need to put the Lucha Bros in there. You could have put them against almost any other team to just make them look good.
I'm trying to think of somebody, but there's got to be somebody else in the top five.
And on some level, I do love the aspect of the tag champs beating 2/3 of the trios champs, because it shows that those divisions are different. One belt, Like if they did next week where Swerve, or not next week, but in a couple of weeks, Swerve in Our Glory with a third against Death Triangle and Death Triangle won, that's the way it should be. It shows that like that trio is better. Exactly. But the Lucha Bros should not be taking losses. They should not be taking losses a week after winning a title. I know what I just said about the divisions being different, but they just won a title last week.
Yeah, no, I agree with that entirely. I was so confused as to why this match was here because I didn't think the Lucha Brothers should be losing this week. And I think it was pretty obvious they were going to lose because everybody wants this Acclaim versus Swerve in Our Glory match next week.
Absolutely.
So they literally put them out there to lose. I don't know the top 5 off of my head. There's got to be somebody in there that could have, even if it was like an eliminator match, they probably could have done it.
I agree. This was a weird move. The match was good because how could it not be with everybody involved? But I don't know. I didn't need it. And, going into next week. Oh, God, who asked me? Yep, I did. Haley, yes, I did, in fact, bleach my beard. And currently I have dye in it. I have not washed the dye out. I ran a little late as I was getting the podcast started. This is how we do it here on the Mark Down podcast. We do it live and we do it poorly. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see next week how Swerve in Our Glory will do, because there is no way at the very least Swerve is not going in as a heel. Keith might be a face or Keith might be a tweener, but at the very, they've just set it up too well for the babyface heel dynamic between the Acclaimed and Swerve. Yeah.
Also, I'm looking at the top 5 at the moment. Apparently, they don't update this thing. So the last one's from August 31st. But it's FTR, the Acclaimed, who are now number 1 contenders, I would imagine. The Bucks, Ten and Uno, and the Guns. So I don't know who from that list could have lost this week. But I just maybe if you're not going to do a championship match, do another title eliminator, throw somebody in the quote unquote top 10 in there and just do it that way. I think that would have been a lot cleaner. You don't have the Lucha Brothers lose the week after they won the titles, like you said. That made a lot more sense to me. I don't know. I enjoyed the match. I just don't know what the purpose of it was.
Exactly. If this was a pay-per-view match a month ago, fine. If this was a TV match 3 weeks ago, a month ago, fine. Right now, the placement of it, too weird, too unnecessary.
Yeah, completely agree. Anyway, after the match, backstage, Marvez tries to get a word with the Lucha Brothers who walk past him. But Pac overhears Marvez saying bump in the road and takes offense to this and decides to remind Marvez who Death Triangle are, running down their accolades, and tells him to put some respect on their name. And as he says that, he gets knocked the fuck out by Orange Cassidy. He drops an orange punch on him, and Cassidy grabs a mic and says, double champ, not for long. So we get to the continuation of the build towards Orange Cassidy against Pac for the All-Atlantic Championship, which I love because despite the fact that I have no idea where Orange Cassidy is from in real life, he is billed from wherever and therefore has the ability to go for this championship, which is just beautiful, beautiful booking by Tony Khan.
Absolutely. That was the long game if I've ever seen one. Man, how cool is it to see a different side of Orange Cassidy?
Yeah, he actually tried.
And it wasn't a reactive Cassidy. It was like he took the shot. He wasn't reacting to Pac. He took the shot on Pac, and I love that.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a turnabout as fair play thing. I think Pac decked them the other week, and obviously they had their match for the Trios Championship last week, which they lost. So, but yeah, Cassidy actually more or less jumping somebody, at minimum sucker punching somebody is, I don't want to say out of character for him, but it's definitely new for his character. So it's really interesting because I think it was last week, I went back and watched the first match between Pac and Cassidy. I think it was at Revolution 2020 because we were talking about it and I was like, I haven't seen this in a while and I really want to watch it again. And I forgot how little Orange Cassidy was doing up until that point, and then how little he was doing in that match for a really good chunk of it, to the point where honestly, even after the beginning where it was funny and he was just avoiding everything, Pac kicked the shit out of him for 10 straight minutes. And then he got to come back in and he almost won, and then Pac ended up winning. Compare that to now, where Cassidy, despite the fact he still doesn't seem to be able to get big wins outside of Jericho and Orange Juice matches, like, he is a top tier wrestler in this company. He is always a threat to win any belt, and he's protected for the most part. And now he's coming for this All Atlantic Championship, and he is not only a legitimate threat to Pac, there is a very good chance he's taking this title. He has come such a long way in these past 2 years.
Next week, it feels like it's going to be such a major event for so many reasons. The first Grand Slam definitely set the tone for what to expect for next week, but the matchups themselves, the AEW World Championship Finals, the Acclaimed versus Swerve in Our Glory, Orange Cassidy versus Pac. This is sort of continuing something that
let's not forget they set up the women's fatal four-way for the women's title.
And now you're saying I'm spoiling things, but come on.
Oh yeah, sure. I forgot they didn't do it until after the match. But I'm just saying this card is really, really stacked. I don't
know how many title changes we're going to see, if any. I know we all want the Acclaim to win the titles off Swerve in Our Glory. Anybody would be happy. I'd be happy with anybody winning the women's fatal four-way. But I am so invested in Orange Cassidy finally winning gold. Admittedly, I think it should have been the trios title with the Best Friends. But regardless, the idea that Orange Cassidy could finally be winning a championship, and he's doing it off Pac, the first person to really help show how good Cassidy was to a crowd.
Old JR on him.
Right? I think that's such beautiful storytelling and can go such a long way to give Orange his roses while he can still get them with AEW. He's not a young guy.
He's 39.
He could go for a while. Like, we've seen people in their 40s now are just going at a great rate. But I'd rather him get what he deserves now than risk not getting it later. So please, putting all my spirit energy, the spirit bomb to Goku, I'm putting all my spirit energy into Orange Cassidy to beat Pac next week.
Yeah, I 1000% want that. And it's such a nice bookend to the match I was just talking about too. Especially Absolutely. If Cassidy goes out there and not only tries, but like fights his ass off the entire time, takes it completely seriously, as opposed to throwing. I know it's like a mental thing, like mental games for him, but as opposed to throwing the little fake kicks and rolling around and stuff like that. Like, if he goes out there and busts his ass that entire time and wins, it's a really nice contrast to that Revolution match. So. All right, let's keep rolling to the match I just sort of accidentally mentioned, which was Toni Storm and Athena versus Serena Deeb and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. We started that with a backstage promo from Toni and Athena explaining why Hikaru Shida was out of the match. It was because Britt attacked her. I don't think that was on Rampage. I think it was on Dark or Elevation. For those of you who are upset like me that Shida is not on TV, she has commitments in Japan again. So this happens a lot. She has a lot of commitments in Japan, and it is slightly disappointing. I think, honestly, the best thing to come out of the pandemic, well, one of the best things coming out of the pandemic wrestling-wise, and that's a very delicate sentence to say, was that Shida was stuck in America, and it would allow her to get a really long AEW title reign because she fucking deserved it. But yeah, unfortunately, she wasn't able to be in this match. So we got Athena instead, which is still really cool because, I think I mentioned this after All Out. I'm enjoying seeing Athena again, and I thought she looked really good in this match, especially in those first few minutes when she was up against Deeb. Granted, I think Deeb can make anybody look good, but it was just really nice to see her go against somebody who, really knows how to go. No shot at Jade there. But anyway, commentary mentions as Britt's coming down from the ramp that she hasn't talked to Jamie Hayter since All Out after everything that happened there. I didn't write a lot of notes for it, but it was a very good match. I thought the crowd should have been far more into it, but again, time slot of death type of spot, right before the main event, as is tradition. The one women's segment gets the time slot of death. This ended with Rebel jumping on the apron to distract the ref. Britt grabs a chair in her opponent's corner. Deeb runs Tony Storm into it, and then is able to get the roll up for the win. Afterward, Athena comes in all pissed off. She takes Deeb down. Britt's able to subdue her. There's a beatdown. Britt gets the chair again, but then Jamie Hayter comes down the ramp and takes the chair from Britt. We all think she's going to hit Britt. Instead, she hits Tony and throws the chair down as the refs swarm in and leaves screaming at Britt while Britt continues to say that she apologized and that she's sorry. So, James, like I said, I thought this match was good. I thought it could have been better considering who was in it, but that seems to be the running theme with a lot of the women's matches nowadays. So what do you think of the match? And then, obviously, like I said, this set up a fatal four-way between those four women at Grand Slam next week. And we have the continuation of Jamie Hayter hating the absolute guts out of Britt Baker. No pun intended there.
It felt very overbooked. I don't know why they would have. Tony took the pin, right?
Yes, she did. After she ate a chair shot, but yes.
I don't know why they would have Tony take the pin.
Yeah, there's a perfectly good Athena right there.
Yeah, seriously.
Especially if you're going to protect her with a chair shot. But I guess it was to set up the title match next week. No say.
I don't know. Regardless, whatever. Britt Baker, I guess, needs to look strong always. I don't understand what happened after the match. Why would Jamie take the chair from her to do it for her, to beat them up with the chair herself, and then still walk away mad from Britt? I don't get it. I don't get what they're going for. If they're trying to make this seem like a complicated issue, it's not complicated. Just move on. You're better off. Nobody wants this. Everybody wants you away from her. Be your own woman. Rawr.
I've seen this before, and you're right. It's just kind of dragging it out and making it complicated. I feel like WWE has done this so many times. I don't know where. Obviously, I think leads with Jamie splitting from Britt, and we got a solid feud there. But I think maybe they're just trying to portray that Jamie still has some mixed feelings about the whole thing. Like her and Britt are tight, and maybe like she went down there to like maybe save Tony and get in Britt's way, and then was like, I can't do this, and hit Britt instead. We don't really know her motivations, which is weird. We haven't heard from Jamie Hayter since All Out, really. This is the first time I think we've seen her. We haven't really heard from Britt too much either, obviously, except that we got the backstage quick segment there where she tried to apologize to Jamie and Jamie blew her off. So there's a lot more to be desired from this feud, but we can only put one women's segment into the show, and it has to be in the time slot of death. So there's only so much time for these women, right, James? So, I mean, I'm pissed. Maybe they're doing more on Rampage and Dark. I didn't see anything about this on Rampage last week. Maybe they're doing more on Dark or Dark Elevation, but I feel like something this high profile, you should probably doing it a bit more on Dynamite.
How dare you want more? How dare you want more for these women and for this company? That's just so selfish. That's so selfish.
Yeah, I mean, fucking Kenny Omega just fucks off to Japan for a while, and all of a sudden the women's division's immediately back in the time slot of death.
Perfectly, we could still somehow circle this back to CM Punk.
Yep. Also, I don't want to like curse the guy out, but I'm very disappointed in the person that said that had the Young Bucks feared CM Punk sign in the front row. Like, get out of here with your R/SC jerk sign, especially at the end there in the main event, with the two winners standing tall. Like, fuck right out of here with that shit. Anyway,
I'm genuinely surprised AEW let that sign stay, because I know for a fact they've taken signs down before.
Yeah, I was a little surprising. I think either way, even if it said CM Punk fears the Young Bucks, I think it probably. I'm surprised it didn't get confiscated, no matter what. I would think Tony doesn't want any of that stuff on TV, especially not in the front fucking row.
Yeah,
it was awful. On TV earlier in the night too, so it wasn't like they didn't have time to take it. But for the most part, they tend not to take signs unless. And
I do respect that. I do respect that. I respect the fact that every fan should be able to say what they want within reason, to a respectful degree, of course. But man, way to just mar that final image of Redacted and Moxley.
Yeah, it was very odd. Chad making a very good point in the chat. A lot of the champs who fought lost tonight. Technically, the tag team champs won, but they beat a different set of champions. But we already went through that. It was just very odd booking. Tony lost though, so I mean, you got 2 out of your 3 champs who fought tonight losing. Very strange. It was I would say the only way it could have got worse is if you pulled the AFC South and you had all of your teams playing, 2 of them play each other and nobody won. Shout out to the Texans. So hence the jersey this week. Anyway, like we were talking about, the main event of the evening, Bryan Danielson versus Chris Jericho in the other half of the Tournament of Champions semifinals. Jericho is back to using the Wizard, which I guess is kind of smart. It kind of protects the Lionheart thing, because now that's 1-1. Man, I don't know. He's a wizard, Harry.
Where were the fireballs? Yep.
Oh, I completely just randomly thought of something because you said fireballs and I was thinking of props. Hobbs accidentally bit into his blood capsule early. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I did. It was awkward.
Assuming it was a blood capsule. He could have actually bit his lip like, Roman Reigns style, but there was a lot coming out. So
I think it was a blood vessel bursting from just the impact of that spine buster.
It could have been it too.
he gave himself a head rush there.
Yeah, he really did. It made him look badass as fuck, even during the promo, though.
That it did.
Like, he just squashed this dude in 5 seconds. He's, like, fucking foaming and bleeding at the mouth. It was a cool visual. Anyway, back to the main event. Like I said, Bryan actually dominated this match very early. He was seemingly hitting everything he went for. And then until Jericho ducked the final yes kick to the head and was able to hit a German suplex, and that really turned everything around. Later in the match, towards the middle, Bryan was hitting the hammer and anvil elbows until Jericho was able to reverse out of that and started doing the same. But then Bryan just shrugged them off because fuck you, that's why. They got into an exchange of chops, and then Jericho hit a code breaker, which backed Bryan into the corner, but he bounced out of that, hit a Busaiku knee, and then they were both down for a second. They were both able to work their ways up using the ring ropes. Bryan tries to suplex Jericho back into the ring. Jericho is able to stay down and then suplex Bryan to the outside. And when Bryan landed, he messed up his foot. I, for a quick sec, thought this was a shoot. And then I always wait until somebody attacks the hurt person. If they attack, it's usually not a shoot. But Bryan was going at his shoe, and I think it was his right foot. Yeah, his right foot. So he was going at his shoe and trying to take it off. Taz and Excalibur made note of the type of shoe he was wearing. It was more of a wrestling shoe than a boot. So you are a little more susceptible to ankle rolls because they're a low cut as opposed to the high boots. Then again, if you ask Seth Rollins, you're a little more susceptible to an ACL tear when you almost roll your ankle in the boots. So it's a little give and take. Everyone should just wear Kobe high tops and we'll all be okay.
Words of wisdom, kids. Listen to the man.
Ask Enzo, man. Actually, do you remember that when he tore his ACL? It was because he was wearing boots, and then he had to get a doctor's note to be allowed to wrestle in Jordans.
Jesus, he would get a doctor's note for that. Oh my God.
I don't know if he actually got a doctor's note, but it was way more obvious that he was so much more comfortable in basketball shoes than wrestling boots that they just let him do it, and it worked out really well because he always had, absolutely fucking fire kicks. So anyway. The doctor comes over to check on Bryan's ankle, but Jericho, noticing the injury, immediately jumps on top of it and starts attacking the foot. And he ends up taking off Bryan's shoe and the kick pad. So Bryan's rocking it barefoot for the rest of the match. Well, he has sock on at least. Eventually, Jericho is able to lock in a figure 4, which is very, very difficult, because Bryan didn't have the boot on, because it's, as Taz mentioned, it's a little harder to get the grip with your leg, but Jericho was able to use his free leg to put in a lot of strikes on that injured foot. There was some hand fighting and head strikes, and then Bryan's able to reverse into the bell lock out of the figure 4 and is able to pick up the win via submission. Afterward, Jon Moxley comes down the ramp. They have a bit of a stare down, a little back and forth, but then Bryan sticks out his hand. Moxley shakes it and leaves. And that is how we ended Dynamite. But, James, another very good match. in this tournament. We've all been complaining about tournaments because we've had so many of them, but this one has not failed to deliver, which was a bit of a double negative, but I couldn't think of a better way to say it. In at least all of the Dynamite matches, and now we have a really cool setup in the finals of Blackpool Combat Club versus Blackpool Combat Club in Bryan Danielson versus Jon Moxley.
We've talked about it a lot here on the pod. Just like you said, we're very tired of tournaments. But I think this tournament served a different purpose because this tournament told a story. Bryan went through 2 former world champions to get to the finals. 2 former world champions that have beat him previously. Hangman's beaten him before. Jericho, they made a point of saying on commentary, Bryan in his entire career has never defeated Jericho.
Which I was shocked at. And I didn't mention it because I wasn't entirely sure I heard them right. I
was
could not
shocked.
Believe that. I assume that
shocked.
means one-on-one, but even still, that was very, very shocking.
This match told a lovely story. This tournament, Bryan's journey in the tournament has told an incredible story. Moxley's was a little more conventional. It had more to do with, just the guy qualifying to get to the finals. But again,
I was going to say his is not even a little more conventional. It was almost a little easier. He had the bye. I think he only faced Guevara, right? That was his only match.
Yes.
And which means he faced a TNT champion instead of 2 former AEW champions.
Absolutely.
Like most of Moxley's tournament time has been messing with fucking MJF,
yep.
And not actually, doing well in the tournament. Not to say he didn't do well tonight. It's just he's had a much easier road than fighting through 2 former champions and injuring himself. The way Bryan did, excuse me.
Just to Dragoon in the chat, yes, we all want Bryan Danielson to win. Well, I want Bryan Danielson to win. I think everyone here on the pod wants Bryan Danielson to win. But
I'll get to that. But go ahead. I didn't say what I was gonna. I didn't say anything. I didn't say who I wanted to win.
Anyway, Jesus. Yeah, I love this match. I love the storytelling in this match. Bryan selling that knee, running for the Busaiku knee to get caught into the walls of Jericho because he couldn't build momentum on the knee was brilliant.
Yeah, he was hopped.
Yeah, the figure 4 stuff about not really being able to lock it in because he didn't have his boots on, brilliant. Bryan winning via submission because, he couldn't hit the Busaiku knee for a W. Brilliant. From start to finish, this match told an excellent story and really helped. Bryan has been in need of a momentum booster, and these 2 matches have done wonders for him in that regard. So very happy with how tonight played out. Very excited for the main event match next week being Bryan versus Moxley for the title.
Hype.
What? Hype? Yeah, no, seriously. So let's see. I don't have much to complain about, if anything. And I want Bryan to be champion. I want him to say he's a former AEW champion or he's an AEW champion. I need it so bad.
I mean, how could you complain about anything so far in this tournament? Except, I guess I complained about the Darby Sammy match. But at least on Dynamite, how could you complain about anything that's gone on in this tournament? It's been perfect so far, I think. Look, here's my thing about who I want to win. It depends on what they do with MJF.
I agree.
If they want to keep the title on the guy who wins for a bit more of an extended period of time, put it on Bryan. And I very, very much want Bryan to be an AEW champion. And especially after, like you said, his momentum had been a bit down. He had lost a lot of his more high-profile matches, I feel like. He lost to Moxley, which I know led to the creation of the BCC. He lost Jericho. He lost to Page. He drew Omega. I know he drew Hangman as well, but still, he hadn't gotten any big draws. He hadn't gotten any big wins yet. At least it didn't feel that way. So him getting his win back against Page, him getting his win back against Jericho tonight, he can get his win back next week against Moxley and become champion, which I am totally here for. If they're going to cash in tomorrow, next week, with MJF, put it on Mox, let him be 3-time, let him get taken out by MJF, let that feud go, and then Mox can go on vacation.
But don't you think it would be a better feud for Bryan versus MJF?
But do you really want Bryan to win the title and immediately lose it?
I'm in a world where I'm used to not having good things in wrestling right now. Okay. All my guys are either suspended or facing drunk driving charges. Bryan winning the title even for 3 minutes or even a week, I will take that as a ray of sunshine on an otherwise cloudy day in AEW. But I get what you're saying. I do. I get what you're saying. If it's just going to be a quick reign, let Mox be the first 3-time champion and move on. And honestly, given what's going on with Punk right now, considering they're both 2-time champions, let Mox get ahead of it and be the first 3-time champion.
And putting your belt back on the Ace is always a good thing. But like
Absolutely.
I said, if it's going to be, even if it's 2 weeks and MJF does it, like I say Mox. If it's going to be multiple months, if it's going to be perhaps through what's next, Full Gear, which is in Newark, and I want to go to that. If it's going to be through Full Gear, put it on Bryan. Even if it's just a couple of month reign, he gets in some good title defenses on Dynamite because he wants to be the fighting champion, and he loses it. He wins it Full Gear and then gets cashed in on. So be it. Like I think that's you get the title on Bryan. You probably elevate some dudes in some good matches, even though they lose. And then you have the MJF stuff, and he can feud with Bryan. You can also have the feud with Moxley because Moxley is defending his boy.
Yep.
And it allows Mox to go on vacation. He loses, he lets Bryan be the champ, and he just bows out for a bit and goes and hangs out with his family, which he's been wanting to do.
How dare he? How dare he have priorities in life that aren't wrestling? But yeah, and I think no matter what, we're probably building towards the BCC versus the Firm.
I don't know. It didn't really feel that way because I feel like MJF said they're a faction on retainer. You know what I mean? I feel like if MJF, I guess maybe, if MJF needs them down the line, like if he's having problems with the entirety of the BCC and not just Bryan or Moxley, whoever wins the title, then yes, perhaps he will, make that call and, drop the cash for the stable. But I think for the most part, they're going to remain separate.
I think they are mostly too. It's like we've seen in the past when Andrade would pay for wrestlers' services.
Or vice versa. Andrade would get paid.
Yeah.
JF paid for a couple of the guys, Butcher and Blade, I think, just to name a specific example.
Definitely. But I do think, though, that a heel like MJF isn't going to want to take on a babyface group like the BCC. Not that the BCC is a group that would bully and do the gang war, like the gang beatdown, but he's a heel who likes to have the upper hand. I could see him trying to have a group to neutralize what he would think would be a threat to his ability to cheat Bryan or Mox out of a title. But we'll see on that point. I compare it to other companies, not even a singular company, but other companies where their world title scenes are so stagnant and so repetitive and so
Who's
boring.
The Impact champ right now? I should know, but I don't.
Josh Alexander. Although admittedly, I wasn't really talking about Impact. I actually think the world title scene's pretty good right now. I was talking more about New Japan.
Oh, that's fair.
New Japan's world title scene.
Yeah, your choices are Okada or Okada.
Yep. So I think I'm just so happy that AEW is in a position where no matter who becomes champion by the end of next week, no matter who's champion by the end of the month or by the next pay-per-view, no one's going to be upset. No one's going to be mad that Jon Moxley is champion again. No one is going to think it's a bad move to put the title on Bryan Danielson. And no one is going to shit on MJF finally ascending to the world title. So I'm just so thrilled that the main event scene in AEW, the world title scene specifically, is so ripe with opportunity, so plentiful. And as fans, You know, AEW does sometimes like to do the most obvious option is also sometimes the best option, so they go with
Hangman.
it. Yeah, absolutely. In this instance, I don't know if there is a most obvious choice, but there are a bunch of good ones. And for that, I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, which is why I think the title scene is probably the most intriguing it's been in a really long time. Because I think for the majority of the AEW title, we kind of knew who was getting it, right?
Yeah.
Jericho in the beginning beating Hangman made sense. Moxley beating Jericho made sense. Kenny, despite the fact he did it in the craziest way possible, I guess at the time it made sense, and then led to the bill collector thing. Hangman beating Kenny eventually made sense.
Yep.
Up until, I guess, the Punk stuff, which I guess still also sort of made sense. Yeah, it was disappointing, but it made sense in a way because they wanted to do a Summer of Punk thing and everything. It made sense. And then ever since that, because Punk got hurt, it's been a little murky. We had Mox and the title unit, the interim championship, and then obviously this unification thing. But now that Punk is gone, he's, at least for now, between both the suspension and the triceps, he kind of had like a, I don't want to say stranglehold on the main event scene, but it was very clear it was just his.
Yeah.
So now this is for the first time, I think we don't know who's about to be champion. It could be Bryan, it could be Moxley. MJF is lurking in the shadows, waiting to pop out and scare the hell out of somebody in that devil's mask. So you're right, like you said, this is a time where the AEW title scene is ripe with opportunity. It depends on which route they decide to take and how they go about it. But I think it's going to be really difficult to fuck this up. And I think whatever they end up doing, I think they're going to do a pretty good job with it.
I think so too. It definitely feels like there is a plan in place no matter what. And all the hands steering the ship right now are trying to steer it into the clearest of waters. The clearest of skies, the most calm of waters. Yeah. So
out of the Bermuda Triangle.
So a lot to look forward to. This episode of AEW felt like a lot of setup for next week. And there was, but they also did a good job of making tonight feel strong too. And this main event solidified that.
Yeah, it was a combination of a very strong episode of Dynamite and like a mini go-home show for one of your biggest events, non-pay-per-view events of the year, if not your biggest non-pay-per-view event of the year. So, like you said, everything was good here. And I think there are far less hands on said wheel at the moment, considering who is not there. So perhaps that'll lead to a little more of a straighter direction instead of the wheel being pulled around by so many different people. I would like to point out really quickly, though, just as an update to all of that, it had been reported that pretty much anybody who was there trying to break up the fight, so like Cutler and
Daniels, Pat Buck.
Yeah, CD and Pat Buck, they are all apparently off suspension now. So I don't know if we're going to get a BTE or not, but it is currently on hiatus. The Bucks did announce that, but most of those guys are not suspended. Kenny, we don't necessarily know because he is in Japan just kind of doing his own thing at one of the video game cons. And I think he's both low-key pushing the AEW game and
he's not. He's officially not.
But he's not officially there for AEW. Yeah. But I think he's also, he's like, hey, our games are really good. I think, he's kind of doing both. But he's hanging out with Kota Ibushi, which is nice.
Thank God. The one good thing to come out of this situation.
Yeah. Nakazawa was with him. I think, isn't CD also in Japan?
He is for wrestling appearances for All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Right. So, yeah, but he's officially no longer suspended by AEW. So that is that update. Obviously, we're still waiting on this independent report and everything, but it appears at minimum they've cleared those guys of any quote-unquote wrongdoing. And we'll move on from there. All right. I just wanted to get that out of the way so we don't have to cover it in the episode coming out later in the week. And speaking of said episode, be sure to like and subscribe. Then you can catch said episode when it comes out later. James's beard will be pink for that episode. I think maybe he'll go fix it up in between now and when our recording, so it looks
God.
actually pink instead of red, but it'll still look cool. And we will be getting the wrap. He couldn't find green apparently, even though he is now frozen, but I think he can still hear me. He couldn't find green, so he got pink instead. So this is the payoff of us getting 100 subscribers. So thank you all of you who subscribed, and hopefully we get on our way to 200. Apparently James has promised the John Cena guy versus Kevin Owens story, so we'll see what's what there. Hey, there he is. He's back.
There you go.
I talked so much shit about you. You didn't even hear
I figured. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Also be sure to check out all of our links in the social media. I probably should have done that now, but if you want to go check out one of our other shows, the links will be in there too. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the TikTok's around somewhere. Still need that link, Danny.
Good luck with that, buddy.
Yeah, I know, because I don't even know how a TikTok works, so I'm old. Anyway, what else do I have to say? I think that's pretty much it, except for thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back here next week. I don't know. Are you doing a Impact thing tomorrow?
Yes, I am doing Impact tomorrow.
All right, so tune in tomorrow night for James's the Gympact Zone. So if you're an Impact fan, you can watch that. Danny will be here Monday for Raw, and we will be back here live Wednesday night for another Dynamite review. So once again, thank you so much for watching. For James Asante, my name is Nick Cummings. We will catch you here next time on the Mark It Down podcast. Have a good one, everyone.